Hello, Tashi Delek. Welcome back to Dharma Snacks. So today we are going to touch on a new topic, which is about the mindfulness of death, where we try to cultivate the awareness that this life will not endure for long. Before we dive into the actual topic, we need to lay the groundwork for this topic. Remember, past several weeks, we explored on the topic of the precious human rebirth, and then we finally, uh, upon reflection on the various points, we arrived at these four resolutions, which is mainly to take advantage of this precious human rebirth to extract the essence of the life. In other words, to make our life, make this life meaningful. And we also uh, arrived at the conclusion that this extracting of the essence of this life must begin right now. So, just to lay the groundwork, so since we have now decided to take full advantage of human rebirth, so now it is about how should we go about. So in Lamrim Chimo, this is taught under the three main headings. So the first one is about the training in the stages of the path shared with the persons of small capacity. We have discussed in one of our earlier classes on the three uh, types of spiritual person. So I'm not going to repeat here. And then the second one is once we have trained ourselves in the stages of the path shared with the persons of small capacity, then we progress to the trainings in the stages of the path shared with the persons of medium capacity. And finally, we enter the training in the stages of the path for persons of great capacity. So this is further divided into subtopics. So when it comes to training in the stages of the path shared with a person of small capacity, we need to develop an attitude of concern for future lives. At the moment, we are so focused, so concerned only on this life's goal. So we need to shift that attitude. We need to change that attitude. And instead of focusing so much on this very life's goal, we need to direct our attention towards future lives. Only then we will engage in something meaningful. And then once we have developed that attitude, then we need to rely on means or methods to achieve happiness in future lives, or to ensure how to ensure through what method to ensure happiness in future lives. So this, the first one, developing an attitude of concern for further lives, is further divided into three more subtopics. So the first one is recollecting death, which is being mindful that this life will not endure for long. For most of us, we fail to uh, generate that kind of concern, that kind of awareness. Generally, we know that everybody will die. But that remains superficial. We always, this awareness does not surface all the time. And then upon reflecting, upon gaining that insight that our life will not endure for long, then it is rational to consider what happens when this life ends. So this is discussed in this second subtopic, contemplating what will occur in your future life, the happiness or suffering of the two types of being. So here we will look at the various sufferings that beings in lower realms or higher realms undergo. So for today, we will begin with the faults of not cultivating mindfulness of death. What happens when we fail to have this conscious awareness that I can die anytime, any day? So first is that we'll not remember to practice Dharma. Because we do not have this conscious awareness that we can die or death can come anytime, any moment, we fail to remember to practice Dharma. The thought of practicing Dharma hardly crosses our mind when everything seems to be working well. We can tell this from our own experience. When we hear about somebody's certain death, then somehow fear arises within us, and only then we think of doing something. We think of doing some virtue, some Dharma practice. Unless and until we have that kind of fear born out of realizing that our life is short and this can happen any moment, such thought to practice Dharma hardly occurs. So that's why it is important to cultivate mindfulness of death. And the second fault is that even when we remember to practice Dharma, even the thought of practicing Dharma occurs, we will always procrastinate. We will always put it to do in the list of to do later. We will always find something else to do instead of Dharma practice. We will say that, okay, I know that I need to practice Dharma, but I have something else to do first. I will do Dharma practice when I finish this thing. For many, it's a very common kind of a tendency that we will say that, okay, let me make money first. Let me ensure my financial situation. Once I have made enough money, then I will focus on my Dharma practice. And some may even think that once I retire, I will commit to Dharma practice. So there is always something else that will overtake our Dharma practice. We always give priority to worldly things over Dharma practice. So this is mainly because we don't have this conscious awareness of death. And then, even if we do not procrastinate, even if we do Dharma practice regularly, without this mindfulness of death, our practice won't be pure. We won't be able to engage in a proper Dharma practice. So what I mean by proper Dharma practice or impure Dharma practice is our motivation. Remember, whether a practice becomes proper or pure depends completely on our motivation. So what happens is when you are not driven by this thought of fear of death, our practice is most likely to be propelled, to be driven by worldly goals. As I mentioned earlier, most of us, when we do prayers, first of all, we fail to generate a proper motivation. We fail even to have a motivation. We do practices such as waterfall offering. How often do we check our motivation? It has just become a routine thing to do. But that is not really, there is no real specific motivation that propelled that action. When we are able to generate a motivation, that tend to be stained by worldly concerns. We do prayers, we do make offerings, we do prostrations just to have happiness, just to be free from difficulties in this life. So that's why we fail to engage in a proper Dharma practice. So on the other hand, when we are able to have this conscious awareness of death, that I may die any time, then whatever we do will be for the future life, because we are fearful of our situation in the future life. So thereby we tend to do something to ensure a good future, a good life in our future life. And then even we engage in proper practice, but because that we do not have this mindfulness of death, we lack intensity. We will do when we feel like doing it. We will do for half an hour and then that's it. So there is no, perseverance. When we are challenged, when we find it difficult to pursue, we will just stop. We won't put effort. So when we are able to have this conscious awareness of uncertainty of the time of the death, then this intensity, rigor automatically arises, because you never know when you will be in your next life. So therefore you want to spend all the available time in doing Dharma practice. So at the moment, we do not have that kind of intensity when it comes to Dharma practice. It is all because of lacking this mindfulness of death. And then, because of failing to having this conscious mindfulness of death, we engage in all kinds of activities that will result into committing negative karma. When we are not driven by ensuring our well-being in our future lives, we will be just obsessed on doing something for this life. So this life involves taking care of your loved ones and then destroying your enemies or those who create obstructions, those who harm us. In Tibetan we call Tadul Nyingdong. So all our actions becomes that alone, just taking care of our friends and loved ones and then defending ourselves from those we consider our enemies. In the process of doing that, there is always our attachment and aversion in play. So everything is driven by attachment and aversion or anger or hatred. So that becomes negative karma. So as long as we fail to have this conscious mindfulness of death, we will continue engaging in negative actions. So that is so dangerous. So not only we are not creating positive karma or virtue, but instead we are continuing to commit countless negative karma. And then eventually death will come. No matter whether we have unfinished business or not, whether we have young children to take care of, whether or not we have old parents to take care of, not whether we are healthy or not, whether we have not retired or not, whether our projects are still ongoing or not, death will come. When it comes, and if we are not prepared, we will die with so much regret. But then, at that time, when you are on the deathbed, it's too late. Regretting won't do anything. So that's why it is important to always reflect on death. Even though in Asian community and also I think over in the everywhere, talking about death is considered taboo and people don't like thinking about death. But in Buddhism, that is like one of the main method for us to urge or to drive us into practicing Dharma. So this is such an important and effective method. So that's why Lama Tsongkhapa says that Nyega rigna kinar tutab me tunjen tongna tumen dawa pang chiwa samna chimar dotab che lende samna pangmen nele dogs. So what it means that Nyega rigna ginar tutab is when we realize how difficult this precious human body is to obtain, we will never stay idle. We will try to take the essence. Tenjin tongna temen dawapang. So when we see what it can accomplish, when we see the capability of this human rebirth, we will try to reap the benefit. We will take the advantage and then try to achieve something meaningful. Likewise, chiwa samna chimar dotapche. When we reflect on death, especially the uncertainty of the time of death, then we will always prepare to move on. We will prepare for the next journey. We will be not stuck and ensnared in this life's goals, fulfilling this life's goals. It is like when you realize that you have to move to another place, you will be planning for your journey. you wouldn't be obsessed on preparing for this wherever you are now. So in my case, when I was in the university, so I stayed in what do you call, in apartment on campus. So knowing that I have only 2 years to stay there, I didn't buy a lot of things. What I bought were just really basic things. So when I come across anything that is nice and cheap, I always hesitate, and I always tell myself, why am I buying this? I'm moving. I'm not going to stay here permanently. After I graduate, I will be moving elsewhere. So what is the point? Why am I thinking of buying this? Why should I buy this? So that's exactly how it happens when we are mindful about that. Because knowing that we have not long to live on this or in this life, we will pray, we will prepare for our next journey. It is like when you decided to travel, you will prepare, you will do research, and you will book your flight. You will save money. Otherwise, you will end up having a disastrous trip to that particular place. First of all, if you don't do a proper research, you may end up in a destination that you will not enjoy. And then while there, if you have not saved enough money, you may end up staying in a cheap hotel or motel where there's no luxury. And then because of your money situation, you may even end up eating or dining at cheap restaurants. So this is same here. When we die, we are actually journeying to a new destination. The way we prepare for our journey, our destination, we should also prepare for the next life. The way we need to have abundance or lots of money, enough, adequate money to have a pleasant stay in that destination, we also need to cultivate adequate virtue or merit so that we can enjoy happiness in our next rebirth. So from here you can see the importance of reflecting on death. So we will stop here and then we will continue next week. Thank you.